What's going on, guys? On this absolutely beautiful day outside, I'm out here to make a video to talk to you about trim packages and if you should opt for that luxury trim package, maybe that mid-model trim package, or that low trim, that base model configuration. We recently made a video talking about our brand new 2025 Subaru Legacy. This is a four-door sedan. We made a full video on it. Go check that out if you want to know more about it. But what you learned from that video is the fact that we did not get a high-spec, high-trim package. They make the base, they make the premium, they make the limited, they make a sport, and they make a touring. And we got the premium, which is the second from the bottom, and there's a lot of reasons why. Whenever you see some of our other vehicles, like our 2024 F450 Platinum and our 2023 GMC Denali on the other side, and my wife's Platinum Expedition, you might automatically assume that we only opt for the highest trim package. And in some ways, sometimes we do, but when we were looking at the Subaru, why did we opt for a lower trim package? And does that logic equate to the same thing when it comes to buying a truck? Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so inside of the F450, this is ultimately one of the highest packages that we could have gotten, right? This is a platinum trim. It has just about every conceivable feature, except for some of the things that I consider to be a little over the top when you buy a limited. That said, the majority of what we opted for in this truck was because I wanted to show you all how it functioned. The bed scale, the onboard generator, the different features that can come into play if you're going to be using an RV, if you're going to be using your truck for utility purposes, and you want to know what some of these really, really crazy features that they're now adding to these trucks are capable of doing. And that's the reason why we got this trim. If I didn't have a YouTube channel, if I wasn't an automotive journalist, I probably would have opted for a Lariat. I probably would have opted for something in a slightly lower package. My one regret about Ford is that they only put the premium headlights on the Platinum and the Limited, and for 2025 only on the Platinum and the Platinum Plus. So that is kind of disappointing to me, because there's certain things that I want in a high trim truck that I don't want to have to pay for the most premium of that truck to get. LED headlights with projectors that turn and give you all those auto leveling capabilities, the things that people look for if you're going to be hauling a heavy trailer and you don't want your headlights glaring into somebody's oncoming traffic, and you don't want to have to install airbags on your truck because you have the bed scale system. Also, LED turn signals, LED taillights. And in order to get those full LED taillights, you have to go to a Platinum or a Platinum Plus or a limited trim truck. And that's just something I wish was different. I really feel as if Ford should have made that an option on all of their trucks. Now, in this truck, you have two huge screens, your instrument cluster as well as your infotainment system. But that doesn't mean that you need to get a super high trim vehicle to get some of this stuff. If you look inside of the Subaru, it's got an enormous screen. Even though it uses standard gauge clusters, it still has an enormous screen, tons of information, again, from a relatively stripped down package. Again, the point of this video is to try to emphasize, do you really need to go to the highest trim package when you're looking at a vehicle? Some of the features that you pay for on super high trim packages may be things like retractable running boards, things that deploy and help make your life a little bit more convenient when you're owning the vehicle. That said, though, from the outside of this truck, there's not a heck of a lot that's different between it and even an XLT package, besides, like I said, the running boards, which you could always add, the headlights, which are definitely something that are unique. But again, there's not too much that's different from the outside of the vehicle. When you look at our Denali with the Duramax, this isn't even the highest trim version of this truck. A lot of people automatically assume when you buy a Denali, you're automatically getting the most. You're getting all the features, all the options. This is a four-wheel drive truck. It does have the baby 3.0 liter Duramax engine inside of it, which is an absolutely phenomenal diesel engine, super compact and very, very, very fuel efficient. But that is actually a very rare find in this combination. So you can get a Denali with pretty much all the engine options, well, at least two other engine options besides the Duramax, and you really have to hunt if you want to find this specific one. And if you are looking for this one, it's typically because you're looking for absolutely crazy good fuel economy. Now, that said, there are multiple options that this truck could have been spec'd with if we were ordering it. Even the Denali Ultimate package, which would have been another $10,000 to $15,000 more than the truck we paid for. Again, How does this apply to trying to determine what trim package you should get, and should you always opt for the highest package? Now back to the Subaru. So again, this is a premium trim package, which means we didn't get it spec'd out with leather interior. It doesn't have parking sensors. It does not have memory seats. It does not have cooled seats, and it doesn't have the larger wheels and tires, or like the little spoiler that you can get on the back deck. Now, a lot of people are going to say, do you really need all that stuff? And the answer obviously is no. To some people, it's one of those options that if you're going to get a high-spec vehicle, you expect it. But when you get something that's a little bit more stripped down, it may not matter as much to you. I'm going to give you an example of why I really like this car. First and foremost, when we found it, it was the only Subaru Legacy that they had. The only one. They had like 2 or 3 others on order. They had really great incentives to get into these things, and it was an absolute bargain in terms of the value you get out of this vehicle versus anything else we compared it to. Plus the fact it has all-wheel drive, it gets outrageously good fuel economy, and it's just a great compact runaround vehicle, even though it's not a compact vehicle. It's just compact when comparing it to the trucks that we have. Now, the one feature, the only feature I really wish this vehicle had that it does not have is memory seats. Now, I know a lot of folks are going to say that's kind of ridiculous. You don't need memory seats. Well, when there's about 1.5 foot height difference between me and my spouse, it makes things a lot easier since we both drive this vehicle. Since we both take it around, we both use this as a runaround vehicle, and having memory seats is just a really convenient way of returning a seat to where it should be for the driver who's going to get inside of the vehicle. Now, some like-to-have features, not must-haves, but some like-to-have features. It would have been cool if this vehicle had parking sensors. It would have been cool if it had remote start from the actual key fob. The odd thing is I can remote start it from my phone app through the Subaru app, but I can't remote start it through the key fob, which is kind of a bummer. You realize the technology's there. Why didn't they just utilize it with the key fob? Anyways, those are the only things that I wish this car had that it doesn't. So parking sensors, memory seats, remote start with the key fob. I am totally fine with cloth seats. Totally fine. I actually wish that they made premium trucks where you could delete the leather option and go back to a cloth option, because sometimes, believe it or not, getting into a super South Texas hot vehicle that's been sitting in the sun, you kind of want something more cloth oriented more than leather. But whenever we talk about packages, that's what you also have to consider. Are the features that you're lacking really important to you, and is it worth paying significantly more to get those features if you've had them in another vehicle before? For instance, since I predominantly drive the F450, I'm really the only one that drives the F450 unless there's some type of a strange situation where my wife might need to follow me or pick me up in it. I don't really need memory seat features. I don't really need that option in this truck. It's nice to have, but it's not one that I would need to have. So you need to evaluate how you drive your vehicle, who's driving the vehicle the most, and if the features you're looking for are convenience features for you or for a multi-driver family. Now again, for me, in my truck, I wouldn't need that memory seat feature. In my truck, having remote start from the key fob is super important, but they offer that on multiple trim levels. Having parking sensors is important, but they offer that on multiple trim levels. So I could have ideally gotten an XLT package, gotten a cloth interior, and I could have had some of those features, but then I would have forfeited the key fob that I can just keep in my pocket, and I would have had to use a twist key fob, which again, I know these are, first world problems, but the reality of it is when you're used to certain technology, you just kind of expect it in your newer vehicles. In the next vehicle you get to, it has to have all the features of your previous vehicle and then some. Well, I don't think that that's always the case, and you should evaluate what you used in the vehicle that you owned before, and if those features are absolutely critical to have in the vehicle you're looking for. Because if you don't use those features, or you realize that you could care less about them, you could probably save a lot of money, because as you look at newer vehicles, they're coming more and more equipped with technology that was optional in vehicles of the past. For instance, the 8-inch display, right? The infotainment system is standard on every Ford truck you get, every Ram truck you get, every GM truck you get. I think Ram's a little smaller. I think it's a 7-inch screen. But you are getting touch screens in every single vehicle out there. So if that is enough for you and you don't need the largest of the displays, then going to a vehicle that costs less and still gives you technology that you never had before might be a better option, and you might be able to save a ton of money. And that's one of those areas that you definitely want to be cautious of whenever buying a vehicle. So for instance, to buy a vehicle that has navigation built into it now, where it has its own standalone navigation, might not be as important today as it was a few years ago, now that all these large screens typically give you wired or wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, where you can project your phone's navigation screen onto the dash of your vehicle. Almost all vehicles have that now. On the Subaru, the minute I get in the vehicle, turn it on, it wirelessly pairs to my phone. I see my map, I see my contacts, I see my music, I see everything. Plus, I can use things like Hey Google and Alexa, which is really, really awesome, because this is giving you technology that you typically would have had to pay thousands for in the past. In the past, if you opted for a navigation system in a vehicle that didn't have it standard, it was usually like a $2,500 to $3,000 option. And now almost every vehicle, even your lowest cost vehicles, have that capability built in because your smartphone gives you that capability. So it's really great that we live in a time to where that type of technology is something that makes the cost of a vehicle actually come down a little bit, because you are utilizing some of that technology in your pocket already. So I hope that makes sense. Another thing that you're seeing that's almost standard on nearly all vehicles now is some form of LED lighting, whether it's accent lighting or whether it's your main headlight. The fact is that LED lighting uses a lot less power, it's more reliable, it lasts longer, and most manufacturers now are just including it on every vehicle that runs off the line, which is really great because you do get some level of premium lighting that was just not available 10 years ago. Now, the fact is, people are going to say that the more technology you get in these vehicles, the more likely it is to break. And there's some truth behind that, but the fact also is that sometimes the technology lasts significantly longer before it breaks, so you're not having to get into a vehicle and swap headlights out. When we had a Ford Fusion and a bulb went out, it was like a $400 charge to get it into a shop so they could raise it up on a lift, remove the inner fender liner so they could get to a light bulb. That means that the bulb replacement cost for a regular halogen bulb costs more than the headlight assembly itself. That's ridiculous. The headlights that come on most modern vehicles, unless there's a mechanical issue with it, can last longer than the life of the vehicle because it's LED technology and it just doesn't fail like an incandescent or halogen bulb can. And as we return to the topic of saving money to get a lower trim package vehicle, oftentimes you're not getting a different suspension system. You're getting the same suspension, the same drive system that you would get in a higher trim vehicle. Now, there might be engine choice differences, but as far as the suspension, the shock absorbers, how it handles things, unless there's a sport variation of what you're looking at, typically it's the same, which means the all-wheel drive system that's in my Subaru Legacy is going to be the same all-wheel drive system that's in the lower trim package as well as the most premium package. And that's a good thing to know, especially if you're looking at pickup trucks, knowing that you can get like an FX4 package on any trim vehicle that they offer. It's the same suspension, same running gear. It's really going to be the same guts underneath. And the only difference might be if you opt for a different power plant, if you opt for a certain gas V8 over a diesel engine, or things like that. So again, it's really, really cool to know that even if you get a base model trim, nowadays you're getting crazy good horsepower, crazy good torque, you're getting a lot of off-road capability, and in many cases, you have the same drivetrain options as the most premium versions of those vehicles. And then finally, to wrap this video up, probably the number one reason from a pickup truck perspective to look at a truck that might be missing some of those luxury features you may not need, or features that are more I would like to have than need to have, is the fact that you're going to get a higher payload capacity in most cases when you opt for a truck without those features. For instance, my truck has about a 5,500 pound payload capacity. It's an F450. They somehow reduced some weight between this one and the previous generation to give you a higher payload capacity. But if I would have gotten this truck in an XLT package, then I probably would have had nearly 6,000 pounds worth of payload, simply because it would have removed a lot of weight from this truck, which honestly really can limit what you can use the truck for in many cases, or at least if you're paying attention to that. One of the biggest reasons why this truck has the payload capacity it has is not because it's an F450. F450, it's because I did not opt, or at least I found a truck that did not have the dual pane panoramic sunroof on a high trim spec. If I would have had that sunroof up there, it would have added probably another 250 pounds to the truck, and I would have lost that from the truck's payload capacity, bringing the payload capacity down another 250 pounds. So that's always something to consider when you're looking at a truck. If you want the most payload, if you want the most towing, you have to look for a truck that is the best mix of features you need to have and features you don't need to have to give you the highest possible number that you're looking for when it comes to payload capacity. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. I know that it is a little different in terms of the topic, but it's definitely one I think people consider as they walk through dealership lots. And you're looking at, again, if you're going to a Ford dealership, you're looking at an XLT, a Lariat, a King Ranch, or a Platinum, and you're trying to figure out which one's going to be best for you. What you really need to do is look for the features that are most important to you and decide if those features are worth paying what you're going to pay for the vehicle. There are so many folks who could probably opt for the standard output 6.7 liter Power Stroke, not get the high output, have more power than they'd ever imagine, have a vehicle that is absolutely a monster when it comes to towing, and able to save another $2,000 to $3,000 off the price of the vehicle and wouldn't even care. But just because they see the fact that there is a high output option and they want that, they get it just for that purpose. So again, keep in mind the practicality of getting a vehicle the way you want it versus the way you need it, and see how much money you can save. It might be worth building a truck out in both configurations on the manufacturer's websites just to see if you literally sit there and make a list of the stuff you don't need in the truck, build that truck, how much money you can save. And you're going to be really surprised when you see that number. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. It's an absolutely beautiful day outside, so we're going to be enjoying the day outside today. We'll talk to you again very soon.